Hey guys, SuperHorrorBro Mike here, and in today's video we take a look at 7 things I hope to see in the new Bendy game, Bendy and the Dark Revival. This is my personal wish list for ideas I would love to see in the new game as a fan of the original. With the announcement of the new game but nothing to really talk about beyond the brief teaser trailer, it felt like a good time to make this video. Bendy and the Ink Machine was a fantastic game full of great moments and memorable characters, combined with a highly original art style that made it really stand out. However, as a result of its tiny budget and small development team, especially during the early days of its creation, it didn't always live up to the full potential of its exciting concept. With a bigger team and higher production values now in place, this follow-up could be something truly special, and with that in mind, here are things I'd like to see included. Bendy the Ink Demon has an iconic design that at times can be genuinely frightening, especially when he decides to walk out from a wall and terrorize the player from behind. That jump scare and the accompanying music never fails to evoke a reaction. The problem was that Bendy's randomized encounters were restricted to a single chapter in the game. In the second half of this chapter, Bendy could appear at almost any point and give chase, with only the mysterious little miracle stations providing safe haven. But there was something special about escaping Bendy. It made us feel a constant sense of tension and threat, and certainly made Chapter 3 one of the most unnerving to play. With all of this in mind, I would like to see more dynamic Bendy encounters in the Dark Revival. Obviously, overusing him would dilute the scare factor, but including enemies which the player is powerless against and at constant threat from would be a good way to make exploration feel more high stakes, and in turn make for a more immersive experience while playing. Throughout Henry's journey in Bendy and the Ink Machine, he came across many puzzles to solve. Unfortunately, most of these were pretty simplistic. Turn a switch to open a door, find a valve handle, or unclog a machine. In fact, the most ingenious puzzle was found in Chapter 2, where Henry had to listen to a clue from Wally Franks to know how to collect a key, which led to a musical combination from Sammy Lawrence that Henry had to input in the recording room to open a secret door. He only knew to do this by listening to another audio recording by Norman Polk found nearby. This was a well thought out and creative puzzle, but for whatever reason we only got one of these during the entire game. So simply put, I'd love to see more of these thought-provoking and layered puzzle designs in Dark Revival in place of a more often used fetch quest design. Bendy and the Ink Machine began with a story that felt very dark and foreboding, and while it certainly had some pretty morbid plot revelations, overall it felt like the further we explored, the more cartoonish and horror-removed the story became. I still find the early chapters for the most part the creepiest to play. Now, from what has been teased so far, Bendy and the Dark Revival seems to indeed be telling a darker and more sinister story. I really hope this is the case, and the game explores the darkest elements of the world lore. Perhaps looking at the process of the human sacrifices and the reanimation process itself. We've seen the aftermath in detail, but only glimpsed at the horrific backstory via various audio logs and that haunting graffiti. So let's hope the Dark Revival lives up to its name and gives us something really creepy this time round, but hopefully still keeping that trademark humour from the original. In fact, I'd welcome more funny moments. After all, the best kind of horror can embrace a goofy side while still being absolutely terrifying. And while we're on the topic of the game's story, Bendy's creators, Vermeatly and Mike Mood, did an excellent job of drip-feeding an interesting narrative full of mystery and plot revelations that made each chapter exciting to play and kept everyone guessing what would happen next, making the wait between chapters seem unbearable, yet keeping the community active and engaged. So simply put, I hope we see a continuation of this for Bendy's Dark Revival. You know what I really loved about Bendy and the Ink Machine? The audio logs. It was exciting to find a new one and interacting with it to see the name of a new character we'd never heard of before. These characters were diverse and quirky and gave a sense of history to the studio, as well as the feel that Joey Drew Studios wasn't always so silent and was once a bustling workplace full of disgruntled employees. In the Dark Revival, as well as returning characters we all know and love, how great would it be to see a plethora of new and exciting characters to learn about at the studio. These character roles could be the voice of artists, musicians, editors, and other workers who either provide little tidbits of story detail or just give extra information on the state of things at the studio while it was still running. They're always great to listen to, and more characters would really sell us on the idea of a once busy studio fallen into madness. That is, of course, if the Dark Revival even takes place at Joey Drew Studios this time. I'll put my hands up and be honest, I never really enjoyed stealth segments in games. However, there are certain games where stealth is so well done that I don't find myself thinking about it all that much. Games such as Outlast and Resident Evil 7 had such well implemented stealth mechanics that I was too engrossed in outsmarting the enemies and making my escape to really care. However, Bendy and the Ink Machine never quite got that stealth element right. It was sometimes hard to tell if enemies had seen you or not, there was no way to peek around corners, duck behind objects out of sight, no real sense that the environments had been designed for this kind of gameplay either. It just felt frustrating and janky to play. So if stealth does make a return in the Dark Revival, I hope it does so in a way that feels natural and fun to play, rather than irritating and tedious. And I honestly believe stealth could be reworked here into an edge-of-your-seat gameplay mechanic used throughout this new game, now that a bigger team of developers are involved. Alice Angel, and by extension her voice actress Susie Campbell, were brilliant characters with deep development and a strong narrative arc. By the end of the game we had found out about Susie's fate at the hands of her employer Joey Drew, a tragic end born out of Susie's love for the character she portrayed on screen, Alice Angel. Alice herself featured just enough to give us insight into what had happened to Susie after the transformation, and exactly why she was so insane and bloodthirsty. Outside of this, she had a great personality, both sweet and innocent in one moment, and cruel and calculated in the next. But outside of Alice and Susie, the rest of the cast were largely underdeveloped. Sammy Lawrence teased an exciting backstory, but nothing ever really came of it, and while we certainly discovered plenty about characters such as Wally Franks and Joey Drew, I always felt large pieces of their story were absent. Maybe because their story continues in some fashion in this new game. Whatever the reason, I think it would be fantastic to see the care and attention put into Alice and Susie's arc added to other characters in the Dark Revival. Basically, more fleshed out characters in general. Finally, I would like to touch on the gameplay itself and ways in which I feel Dark Revival could really shine. We've just covered developing characters into more detail, so how about these characters being developed not simply through cutscenes and audio logs, but gameplay segments too? Imagine being stalked by a character such as Sammy or Alice while exploring a level, hearing them speak as they hunt you through the halls, finding hiding places to move between as story is delivered dynamically. This would also allow these villains to play an active threat to the player during gameplay, much like Bendy himself. Also, minigames between chapters could be a fun inclusion, and because this is a game themed around animation and cartoons, it would be amazing if we found ourselves playing 2D style minigames that allowed us to play through moments from the classic Bendy cartoons. Think of the style of Cuphead, brief run and gun stages that could unlock additional perks and story details if completed successfully. Now we've seen this mechanic used in games such as Five Nights at Freddy's, which include interactive retro style cutscenes too, so Bendy doing this with cartoon visuals is something I'd personally be very excited to see. Outside of these minigames and more dynamic villains, as well as more in-depth puzzles, one final gameplay addition that would be really cool would be more set-piece moments. It was spectacular escaping the studio as it collapsed around us in Chapter 1, and thrilling as the elevator plummeted down in Chapter 3, but with a bigger team, these big bombastic moments could be even more spectacular and used more often to make for a more thrilling adventure. Of course, all of these additions are just things that I personally would like to see as a fan, and I'm confident the team at Kindly Beast and Joey Drew Studios are doing an excellent job designing this new game. We've already seen a big jump in visual quality, and with very little of the actual game shown yet, I for one am very excited to learn more in the coming months as we wait for the release of Chapter 1 later this year. And that's it for today's video. Please remember to give it a like if you did enjoy watching, and maybe drop a comment too, as well as subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications so you never miss an upload. This channel specializes in variety horror content, including creepypasta readings, horror gaming facts and theories, and general interest pop culture horror videos. So if you're interested in all things spooky, you'll find something to enjoy here at SuperHorrorBro. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.